Have you ever noticed how some people seem to drain all your spiritual energy without you fully understanding why? Perhaps you felt this after a conversation, after offering help, or even just by being in someone's presence. It's not your imagination. There is something profound happening in these interactions, something that ancient wisdom recognized very well, and that modern life has made us forget. When you help certain people, you are not just offering your time or your words. You are offering something much more precious, your own essence, your vital energy, what the Easterners call chi or prana. And when this energy is directed towards someone who is not ready to receive it, or worse, towards someone who deliberately wastes it, you are not helping anyone. You are just emptying yourself. Alan Watts spent decades exploring this paradox of help that does not help, of compassion that turns into self-destruction. And he came to a conclusion that may seem harsh at first glance, but is profoundly liberating when understood. Not everyone is ready to be helped. Not every situation requires your intervention, and some people, consciously or not, are stuck in patterns that drain the spiritual energy of those who approach them with good intentions. Think of it like a river. Water flows naturally from high to low, following the path of least resistance. But what happens when you try to make the water go up the mountain? You expend immense energy, forcing something that goes against the nature of the flow. And the moment you stop, the water simply flows back down. Your energy was wasted because you were fighting against reality, not working with it. The same happens when you try to help certain people. They are going down the mountain, moving in a specific direction by their own choice, or due to deeply rooted patterns. And you, with all your goodwill, try to push them upward against their natural flow. The result is predictable. You exhaust yourself, your spiritual energy dissipates, and the person remains exactly where they were, or perhaps even further down, because they learned that someone will always come to try to carry them. This is not cruelty. It is wisdom. Alan Watts often spoke about the difference between genuine compassion and what he called neurotic saviorism, that compulsive need to save others that actually hides a deep fear of facing oneself. When you cannot say no, when you feel you need to help everyone who crosses your path, you are not acting out of true love. You are acting out of fear. Fear of being seen as selfish, fear of rejecting someone, fear of admitting that you too have limits. And that fear is exactly what allows your spiritual energy to be completely drained. Because you are not giving freely, you are being sucked into a codependency pattern that benefits no one, neither you nor the person you imagine you are helping. Spiritual energy is not infinite, at least not in the way we imagine. It needs to be cultivated, protected, consciously directed. When you waste it on help that does not generate real transformation, you are like someone planting seeds in barren soil. The seeds are precious. The soil does not welcome them, and in the end, you are left without seeds and without a harvest. Certain people are like that barren soil, not because they are bad or unworthy, but because they simply are not in the moment to receive. They have not yet awakened to their own responsibility. They still believe that the solution will come from outside, that someone will save them, that they do not need to do the necessary inner work, and as long as they remain in that state, any help you offer will be like water poured into a bucket with holes. No matter how much you pour, the bucket never fills. Observe the people around you. Those who truly transform are the ones who take responsibility. They may accept help, yes, but they work with that help. They take what you offer and multiply, transform, apply it. You feel that your energy generated something because there is a return, not necessarily to you directly, but to the world, to life. These people use their spiritual energy as fuel for their own growth. Now think of the others, those who are always in the same situation, always with the same problems, always needing more help. You have already offered everything you could, given advice, time, resources, energy, and nothing changes. Why? Because these people do not really want to change. They want to be comforted, validated, carried, and every time you try to help them, you are feeding exactly the pattern that keeps them trapped. Alan Watts spoke about this using the metaphor of the ego. Certain people have built their entire identity around suffering, victimization, need. For them, solving problems would mean losing their identity. It would mean facing the terrifying void of not knowing who they are without their stories of pain. And then, unconsciously, they sabotage every attempt at real help. Not because they are manipulative in a conscious sense, but because their very ego needs to keep the pattern functioning. And when you enter this game, when you keep trying to save someone who does not want to be saved, you are throwing away your spiritual energy into a bottomless pit. You are feeding not the person, but the destructive pattern that imprisons them. And here's the hardest truth to accept. Sometimes the greatest help you can offer is to refuse to help. It is to say no. It is to allow the person to face the consequences of their choices. This is not abandonment, it is respect. It is recognizing that each human being has their own path, their own timing, their own lessons to learn. You cannot learn for anyone. You cannot grow in place of another person. And when you try to do that, when you try to carry the weight that is not yours, you are actually preventing that person from finding their own strength. You become a crutch, and crutches are useful temporarily, but they become prisons when used for too long. The person forgets how to walk on their own, because there is always someone to support them. Protecting your spiritual energy is not selfishness. It is preserving what allows you to truly contribute to the world. Think of yourself as a lit candle. You can use your flame to light other candles, and that is beautiful. Each candle you light continues to shine, spreading light. But what if you try to light wet candles? Candles that have been left in the rain, that do not really want to burn? You will spend all your wax trying, and in the end, your own flame will go out. And then there will be no light, neither yours nor theirs. This is what happens when you help certain people without discernment, without wisdom about when to offer energy and when to withhold it. If this video is making you reflect on your own relationships and where you might be losing spiritual energy, leave a like so that more people can find this message. And share in the comments which city you are watching from. Let's create a community of people who understand the importance of protecting spiritual energy. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of self-knowledge with us. The question then becomes, how to know when to help and when to step back. How to discern between someone who genuinely needs support and someone who will simply drain your spiritual energy. Alan Watts offers us a clue through the concept of responsibility. Observe if the person is taking any level of responsibility for their situation. This does not mean blaming them for everything that has happened. It simply means asking, is this person doing something, anything, to change their situation? Or are they completely passive, waiting for the solution to come from outside? If it is the latter, your help will likely be wasted, because real transformation only happens when there is an internal movement, a decision to change. Without that, you are just postponing the inevitable, spending your energy to keep someone in a state that is not sustainable. There is a profound difference between supporting someone in their growth and trying to do the growth for that person. When you support, you offer resources, perspectives, presence, but the person does the work. They take the steps, they face the fears, they transform themselves. Your spiritual energy in this case is like fertilizer in fertile soil. It enhances something that is already wanting to grow. But when you try to do the work for the person, when you take on the responsibility that is theirs, you are not helping. You are creating dependency, and dependency is toxic for both sides. For you, because it constantly drains your energy. For the other person, because it keeps them infantilized, unable to discover their own strength. Alan Watts often cited Taoism to illustrate this point. The wise Taoist acts through non-action, Wu Wei. This does not mean complete inaction, but rather action that flows with the nature of things, not against it. Applied to help, it means that you offer assistance when it can really make a difference, when the timing is right, when the person is receptive. And you step back when you realize you are forcing it, when you are struggling against the other person's resistance, when you are exhausting yourself without results. This wisdom requires sensitivity. It requires you to be attentive not only to the external situation, but also to your own internal state. Are you helping from a place of fullness or from a place of emptiness, trying to fill yourself up? Many people help compulsively because they unconsciously seek validation, purpose, or distraction from their own problems. They need to feel needed. They need to believe they are good, useful, valuable. And then they find people who perpetually need help, and a codependent dance forms. The helper gets their dose of validation, and the helped gets attention and resources without having to actually change. It seems to work superficially, but energetically, it is devastating. The spiritual energy of both gets trapped in this cycle, spinning in circles without going anywhere. There is no real growth, no liberation, just a repetition of the same exhausting pattern. When you recognize this in your own life, when you realize you have been helping certain people repeatedly without seeing any change, the honest question to ask is, why do I keep doing this? What am I gaining from it? And the answer may be uncomfortable. Perhaps you are avoiding your own challenges. Perhaps you need to feel superior. Perhaps you fear that if you are not needed, you will be abandoned. These unconscious motivations are what allow your spiritual energy to be drained without you being able to stop. You are stuck in your own pattern just as much as the person you imagine you are helping is stuck in theirs. Liberation comes when you can help without attachment to the outcome. When you offer what you can offer freely, without expectation, without the need for the person to change or to be grateful, or even to acknowledge your help. You give because you have to give, because it flows naturally from your fullness, not from your lack, and then you let go. You do not keep checking if the person used your help well. You do not get frustrated if they wasted it. You do not get emotionally stuck in the unfolding of their story. This is mature compassion. It is recognizing that each person has their own path and their own pace, and that you are not responsible for saving anyone. You can offer light, but you cannot force someone to look at it. This form of compassion preserves your spiritual energy because there is no leakage. You are not constantly thinking about the person, worried, trying to find new ways to help, blaming yourself when they do not improve. You did what you could, and now your energy is free to flow where it can really make a difference. Perhaps to another person who is genuinely ready to receive help. Perhaps to your own projects and growth. Perhaps simply to rest and recharge. All of these are valid and necessary ways to use your spiritual energy. There is also the aspect that some people are energetically vampiric, not out of malice, but out of sheer desperation. They are so empty, so disconnected from their own inner source, that they unconsciously seek to fill that void with the energy of others. When you are near them, you feel an inexplicable fatigue. After conversation, you feel drained, even if nothing particularly heavy was discussed. These people have not been taught or have forgotten how to connect with their own source of spiritual energy, and so they live borrowing from others. The problem is that borrowed energy never truly satisfies. It is like trying to quench hunger by drinking water. It may provide temporary relief, but the emptiness remains. You cannot fill that void for anyone. Each person needs to find their own connection to the source, whether through spiritual practices, therapy, self-reflection, or simply through the suffering that eventually forces them to look within. When you try to fill someone else's void with your own energy, you are sacrificing yourself unnecessarily, because the moment you step away, the void reappears. The person has learned nothing. They have not strengthened. They have only become accustomed to depending on you, and now they demand more. And if you do not give, you are seen as selfish, ungrateful, cruel. This is the vicious cycle that drains spiritual energy, not only through direct loss, but also through the guilt and confusion it generates. Alan Watts had an interesting perspective on suffering. He said that much of human suffering is self-imposed, created by resistance to reality. And part of that resistance is the refusal to accept that some things cannot be changed from the outside, only from the inside. When you try to change someone who does not want to change, you are resisting reality. You are saying that you know better than life itself what should happen. And this arrogance, no matter how well-intentioned, generates suffering. For you, because you fail repeatedly. For the other person, because they feel the pressure of your expectations, the disappointment when they do not measure up, the weight of being your salvation project. There is a certain humility in recognizing that you cannot save anyone. You can witness, you can offer tools, you can be present, but the journey is theirs, not yours. And some people choose, consciously or unconsciously, to remain where they are. That is their right, no matter how painful it is to observe. Your responsibility is to yourself, to your own spiritual energy, to your own journey. When you place someone else's journey above your own, both get lost, because you empty yourself trying to fill them, and they never learn to fill themselves. So how do you protect your spiritual energy while still maintaining a compassionate heart? This is the delicate dance that Alan Watts invites us to learn. First, by recognizing that boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are like skin. They define where you end and the other begins. They allow for healthy exchange while protecting your integrity. When you establish clear boundaries about what you can and cannot do for others, you are not being cold or insensitive. You are being realistic. You are honoring your own limits. And paradoxically, this allows you to help more effectively when you choose to do so, because you are helping from a place of strength, not depletion. Many spiritual traditions speak about the importance of filling your own cup first. You cannot serve from an empty cup. When you constantly give your spiritual energy without replenishing yourself, without reconnecting with the source, you will eventually have nothing to offer. And then you collapse, whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And ironically, all the people you were trying to help are now left without your support because you have completely exhausted yourself. It would be much wiser to help less but sustainably, always keeping your own connection to spiritual energy strong and vibrant. How do you replenish your spiritual energy? This varies for each person, but certain practices are universally effective. Regular silence and solitude where you are not performing for anyone, not fulfilling any role, just being. Nature, which reminds us of rhythms greater than our small human anxieties. Contemplative practices like meditation or prayer, which reconnect us with something greater than the ego. Creativity, which allows energy to flow through you in a generative way. Conscious movement, which releases stagnant energy in the body. And perhaps most importantly, genuine relationships where there is real reciprocity, where you are not always giving or always receiving, but where there is a natural flow of exchange. Observe your relationships through this lens. Which of them energize you? After spending time with these people, do you feel more alive, more connected, more yourself? These are relationships that nourish your spiritual energy. Now note which relationships drain you. Do you leave them feeling heavy, tired, lesser in some way? These are the relationships where your spiritual energy is being sucked away, and you need to honestly assess whether it is worth maintaining them. Some may be transformed through better boundaries. Others may need to be let go, no matter how difficult that may be, because life is too short and your energy is too precious to be constantly drained by people who are not willing to do their part. Alan Watts spoke about the wisdom of knowing when to let go. In nature, trees shed their leaves in the fall. They do not cling to them trying to keep them alive by force. They recognize the season and allow what needs to fall, to fall. This is not cruelty, it is wisdom. And then, in spring, new life sprouts precisely because the tree did not waste energy trying to keep alive what had already fulfilled its cycle. The same applies to human relationships. Some people are in our lives for a reason or a season, not forever. And when we try to force them to stay beyond the natural time, or when we try to save them when they are clearly choosing a different path from ours, we cause unnecessary suffering and drain our spiritual energy unnecessarily. There is a powerful question you can ask yourself when you feel that you are losing energy with someone. Am I doing this out of true love or out of fear? True love is free, does not possess, does not control, does not need the other to be a certain way. True love can say no, can set boundaries, can even walk away if that is the healthiest choice. Fear, on the other hand, clings, needs to be necessary, has a terror of rejection or abandonment, continues giving even when there is nothing left to give. And if you are helping certain people out of fear, your spiritual energy is being drained not only by the help itself, but by the unhealthy motivation behind it. And this needs to be faced honestly if you want to break free. The liberating truth that Alan Watts repeatedly pointed out is that you are not responsible for anyone's happiness, growth, or salvation other than your own. This is not selfishness, it is reality. Every human being is a whole cosmos, with their own choices, consequences, lessons, and paths. You can offer companionship on the journey. You can share what you have learned. You can hold someone's hand in difficult moments. But you cannot take the journey for them. And when you try, you lose yourself, and the other person never finds their own strength. Both get stuck in a pattern that serves no one. Imagine that your spiritual energy is like a bank account. Every time you genuinely help someone, with an open heart and without attachment, it is like an investment that generates returns, not necessarily for you directly, but for the universe as a whole. The energy circulates, multiplies, creates more light. But when you help certain people who are not ready or who are stuck in destructive patterns, it is like throwing money into a hole. There is no return, no circulation, just loss. And if you keep doing this, eventually your account goes negative. You enter a spiritual deficit, operating in the red, trying to give what you no longer have. And this manifests as chronic exhaustion, cynicism, resentment, or complete collapse. Protecting your spiritual energy is a sacred act of self-love. It is not vanity or superficial selfishness, but a deep recognition that you are a channel through which divine energy flows into the world. If you clog that channel with toxic relationships, with wasted help, with codependent patterns, you block the flow. And then not only do you suffer, but everyone who could benefit from your full and energized presence also loses out. You have a cosmic responsibility to keep yourself clean, open, vibrant. And sometimes that means saying no, means stepping back, means letting certain people go their way while you go yours. Alan Watts lived this truth. He helped millions through his teachings, but he also knew when to step back, when to preserve his own energy, when to recognize that some people were not ready to listen. He did not try to save everyone. He offered wisdom freely to those who had ears to hear, and let the rest go in peace. That is the mark of true spiritual wisdom. Generosity without attachment, compassion without codependence, love without the need for control. So observe your life today. Where are you wasting spiritual energy on help that does not generate transformation? Who are you trying to save who does not want to be saved? What boundaries do you need to establish to protect your own spiritual vitality? These are questions only you can answer, but answering honestly is the first step to reclaiming your energy. And when you do that, something wonderful happens. You discover that you have much more to offer than you imagined because you are no longer leaking constantly. Your light shines brighter because you have stopped trying to illuminate dead-end tunnels. Alan Watts' final message on this is simple yet profound. Live your own life fully. Be yourself without excuses. And by doing so, you naturally inspire others effortlessly without exhaustion. Your own fullness becomes the teaching. You do not need to save anyone because you are demonstrating through your own being that salvation does not come from outside but from within. And those who are ready will see this and find their own source. Those who are not ready will continue seeking external saviors, and that is okay too. It is not your problem. Your only responsibility is to shine. And to shine, you need to protect your flame. If this message has touched you deeply, if you have recognized patterns in your own life that need to change, leave a like on this video and share in the comments which city you are watching us from. Let's build a community of people who understand the value of protecting spiritual energy. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving wisdom that transforms lives. Your journey of self-discovery begins when you decide that your energy is sacred and deserves to be protected.